My name is Jordan, and I'm 29. I stepped out of a taxi in my dress blues. Metals heavier than usual, because I had just come back from 6 months in Okinawa, and all I wanted was one quiet night in my own house. Then I looked up and saw a giant red sign planted in the middle of my lawn. 2 men in coveralls were hauling my life out the front door. My books, my framed commendations, my clothes, tossing everything into a dumpster like it was garbage. On my porch, holding beers like this was a backyard party, were my father, Richard, and my deadbeat brother, Caleb. Richard did not wave. He did not flinch. He just pointed at the dumpster and said, "You don't live here anymore." We cashed out. I did not run. I did not scream. I adjusted the strap of my bag and started walking up the driveway, my boots crunching on gravel with the same steady rhythm I'd used for years. In my line of work, logistics and intelligence support, you learn fast that the loudest person in the room is usually the most vulnerable. Panic is a luxury. I did not spend it overseas, and I was not about to waste it on these two. When I reached the steps, I stopped and looked up at them. The porch height was designed to make me feel small. I had never felt taller. Caleb smirked, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Richard took a slow sip of his beer, like he was about to explain a minor inconvenience. "Your brother got into trouble," Richard said. "He owes the wrong people money. 120 grand. We had to act fast." I repeated, voice flat. I don't remember being part of the we that decided to liquidate my life. Richard's eyes hardened. Family sacrifices for family. There it was. The same script he'd used my whole life. Guilt disguised as virtue. He kept going. "You're single. You live on base half the time. You don't need a house." Caleb needed a lifeline. I stared past him at the front door and remembered the day I bought that house at 22. Fresh off my first deployment, holding a check made from hazard pay and sleepless nights. That house was not just wood and drywall. It was the only place on earth where I did not have to scan every corner with my eyes. I renovated it myself. I sanded those floors until my fingers bled. I painted the walls a soft gray because I needed quiet in my head. Richard stood on this same porch back then and told me I was selfish for buying property, while Caleb struggled. They tried to make me feel guilty for stability then, and now they were punishing me for it. I looked back at my father. "You used the power of attorney," I said. It was not a question. I had signed a POA years ago for emergencies, medical decisions, personal affairs, in case I came back in a box. Richard's smile twitched. Caleb chimed in. "Smug. You signed it. Sis." Then he raised his wrist like he wanted me to see the new Rolex flashing in the sun. "Expensive. Brand new. Bought with a deposit on my sanctuary. It was legal. Dad saved my life. You should be happy." He did not look saved. He looked well-fed. Arrogant. Like a parasite that finally got a full meal. "I signed a power of attorney for medical decisions," I said. "Eyes on that watch. Not so you could loot my life while I'm still breathing." Richard waved his hand like the conversation bored him. "It's done. The buyer is inside. That will transfer in 10 minutes. Money's already wired. You can stay at that motel off the highway until you redeploy." That was the moment something snapped clean inside me. Not my temper. My attachment, because I heard it clearly. I was not a daughter to them. I was a resource. An asset. Inventory they could sell to cover their bad decisions. They didn't just sell my house. I thought. They sold me. I looked at Richard. "Is the buyer here?" He narrowed his eyes. "Don't you dare make a scene. She paid cash. We need this deal to close." I smiled. Cold and sharp. The kind of smile I usually saved for enemies. I wouldn't dream of making a scene. I said, "I just want to meet the new owner." The door opened before I could knock. A woman stepped out in a beige pantsuit with an expensive manicure and eyes that scanned everything like a spreadsheet. Not a family. Not a first home. An investor. Her name was Sarah. She looked me up and down and didn't offer a hand. "You must be the daughter." Your father said you might show up. Look, it's done. Papers are signed. Money transferred. I need you off my property before I call the cops. Through the open door, I saw Richard standing by my kitchen island, waving a bank receipt like a trophy. He grinned at me, wide and triumphant. It's over. Jordan, he called. 120 wired straight to the Sharks. Caleb's clear. The rest is locked up. You can't touch it. I turned back to Sarah. You wired the full amount? I asked. She checked her watch like I was wasting her time. 650,000. Cash. Cleared 10 minutes ago. I let a silence hang between us. The trap was set. The bait was taken. The cage door had just clicked shut. You really should have waited for the title search, I said quietly. Sarah scoffed. I buy distressed properties for cash all the time. I skip red tape to beat the market. I know what I'm doing. Do you? I asked. I reached into the inside pocket of my uniform jacket and pulled out a document. Not a weapon, but it was about to do more damage than any rifle I'd ever carried. If you had run a title search, I said, you would have seen my father doesn't own this house. He has power of attorney. Sarah's eyes flicked to the paper. He showed me the POA. Yes, I said. A general POA lets him act for Jordan the individual. But Jordan, the individual, doesn't own this property anymore. I unfolded the page and held it up. It was a certified deed transfer, stamped and dated. I transferred the title into the Jordan Revocable Living Trust 6 months ago. I said, my father is not a trustee. He has no authority over trust assets. He cannot sell what he does not own. Behind Sarah, Richard froze mid-celebration. The receipt in his hand stopped looking like a trophy. It started looking like evidence. I pointed at the papers in Sarah's hand. That signature on your sale contract is not a sale. It's a forgery. And since you wired $650,000 across state lines based on fraudulent documents, congratulations. You're now standing inside a federal wire fraud case. Sarah snatched the deed copy from my hand, scanning the trust seal, the dates, the language. The color drained from her face so fast she looked sick. She turned slowly toward Richard. You said you had full authority. Richard lurched forward, panic cracking his voice. I do. I have the POA. It's right there. Read the fine print, I said calmly. It covers medical decisions and personal accounts. It does not give you authority to sell assets held in a trust. Sarah's shock morphed into rage. Predatory. Focused rage. Give me my money back. She hissed at Richard. Richard stumbled backward, hitting the counter. I can't. What do you mean you can't? Sarah stepped into my house. Heels clicking like gunshots on hardwood. Reverse the wire. Now. Richard's face twisted. I already sent it. For Caleb. It's gone. The Sharks took it. Silence slammed down. Caleb stared at the floor. Sarah stared at Richard like she was deciding whether to sue him, hit him, or both. This was what they wanted. Quick cash. A shortcut around me. A clean theft with no witnesses. Instead, they walked into a minefield I laid months ago. And now there was nowhere to run. Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I need to report a fraud in progress, she said, voice shaking with fury. Significant theft. The perpetrator is still here. Richard's eyes snapped to me. Not remorse. Not guilt. Indignation. The anger of a man who cannot believe his victim refuses to cooperate. You did this, he spat. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I didn't sign the papers. Richard, I didn't wire the money. You did. You knew, he screamed. You stood there and watched me do it. I gave you a choice, I said. You chose to lie. Sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed through my windows. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, drawn by yelling like moths to fire. That was the real pain for Richard. Not the police. The humiliation. His carefully curated image was falling apart in public. Officers stepped in and started asking questions. Sarah pointed at Richard and the paperwork. Richard's voice turned pleading instantly. A switch I'd seen my whole life. Jordan, you can stop this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I looked at him like he was a stranger. You stopped being my father when you treated me like a bank account. They cuffed Richard. He barely resisted. Because bullies hate witnesses more than consequences. As they led him out, I thought the worst was over. It wasn't. Caleb moved fast and blocked my path near the doorway. Eyes wild with desperation. He held up his phone and showed me a drafted email. It was addressed to my chain of command. It accused me of selling stolen military equipment. It had fake invoices. A forged bank transfer. The kind of accusation that could destroy a clearance in hours. One click. He whispered. And your career's done. Drop the charges. Sign the house over. Or I hit send. I did not beg. I laughed. Go ahead, I said. Send it. Caleb froze, confusion breaking his threat. My finances are audited monthly. I continued. Your fake documents don't match federal records. If you send that, you're not exposing me. You're confessing. His phone slipped in his hand. Panic replaced arrogance. I raised my voice toward the officers. He is attempting extortion using falsified military documents. I want to press charges. The officers turned. Caleb tried to backpedal. It was a joke. Intent is enough, one officer said, and they cuffed him too. Richard screamed from the cruiser. Caleb shouted that I was ruining the family. Neighbors watched as both of them were driven away. The men who treated my home like a piggy bank. I walked back into my yard and yanked the sold sign out of my lawn. I threw it into the trash like it belonged there. Inside, the house was quieter than it had been in years. The movers were gone. The porch was empty. I changed the security codes and watched the keypad blink once. A small beep confirming something simple and powerful. They could not touch me anymore. I wasn't happy yet. Not fully. But I was safe. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. If you've ever had to become the villain in someone else's story just to survive, subscribe and turn on notifications. More real story times are coming.